When I opened my eyes, the first thing I saw was the pulse oximeter flashing red, my oxygen levels dropping again. The antiseptic smell of Mount Sinai Hospital soaked into the air, sharp and metallic. A paper cup of Starbucks coffee sat on the bedside table, still warm, as if someone had just placed it there. But the room was empty. My throat burned when I spoke. "Lily, sweetheart, are you here?" No answer. Just the steady beep of the heart monitor. I remembered collapsing in my apartment in Hoboken, clutching my chest while trying to breathe. Pneumonia, the doctor said. But this, waking up alone, this was worse than the illness itself. My daughter always answered my calls, always held my hand after every IV. So where was she now? A soft sound came from the hallway. Slippers. A woman rushed in, short brown ponytail, hospital scrubs, rubbed raw eyes. "Helen, you're awake." It was Grace, my daughter-in-law. Her voice cracked with exhaustion. "I stayed all night. Michael had to go home. The doctor said to call them if you woke up." She held my hand with both of hers, warm and trembling. That was the moment I realized. She'd been sitting by my bed for hours, maybe the whole night. "Where's Lily?" I whispered. Grace's smile froze. "She hasn't answered any of our calls." My stomach dropped. Lily never disappeared, not without a reason. Grace pulled the recliner closer. Her scrubs were wrinkled and her phone charger was still plugged into the wall. She hadn't left, not even to rest. "I thought you were getting better," she said, brushing a damp curl off my forehead. "Then your breathing crashed again. They had to increase your oxygen around 2 a.m. 2 a.m. And Lily never showed." I reached for my phone. The notifications were blank. No missed calls, no texts. I checked Lily's last message from yesterday evening. "Love you, Mom. I'll come after work," but she never came. My chest tightened, not from pneumonia but fear. "Call her again," I said. Grace dialed. Straight to voicemail. Suddenly, a nurse stepped inside holding a clipboard. "Excuse me, Mrs. Carter. There was a man earlier tonight who tried to sign temporary medical consent forms for you. He said he was your representative." Grace and I turned in unison. "A man?" I whispered. "What man?" "He didn't leave his name, but he insisted Lily authorized him." The nurse glanced at Grace. "Your daughter-in-law refused to let him sign anything without family verification. Good thing she did." A coldness swept through my bones. Someone tried to sign legal papers while my daughter was missing? Grace's jaw tightened. "I told him unless Lily contacts us herself, nobody signs anything." The nurse nodded and walked out, leaving my heart pounding in the silence. I looked at Grace, exhausted, pale, but unshakable. She had been here when my own children weren't. "You stayed all night?" I asked. She exhaled. "Of course. Your family." Something bitter rose in my throat. Family. Yet my daughter had vanished. I pulled my Kindle from the bedside drawer. It was still open to a line from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." And for the first time, a thought crept in. Dark, unwelcome. Someone wasn't telling me the truth. Grace hesitated, then leaned closer. "Helen, earlier, before you woke up, I saw something strange." Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "A man was standing outside your room. He kept asking which documents needed your signature. When I told him I was family, he walked away fast. Too fast." My blood ran cold. Where was Lily? Who was that man? And why did he want my signature? The heart monitor beeped faster, mirroring my pulse. Grace squeezed my hand, steady and warm. "Don't worry," she whispered. "We'll find Lily." But deep in my chest, I felt it. This wasn't an accident. This was the beginning of something dangerous. Morning light spilled across the hospital room, thin and gray through the blinds. I hadn't slept at all. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Lily lying somewhere alone, hurt or afraid. The nurse came in to check my vitals, but my mind was far from the blood pressure cuff squeezing my arm. Grace was still here. She hadn't gone home, not even after the sun came up. Her hair was tied in a loose knot and she kept rubbing her eyes to stay awake. A half-finished Starbucks latte sat on the windowsill, the foam dried at the rim. "You should rest," I told her, forcing a smile. "I will," she said, "after we reach Lily." The way she said we made my throat tighten. My own son hadn't shown up, but this girl, my daughter-in-law, refused to leave me alone. My phone still showed no messages. No calls. Nothing. Grace sat by the table and opened her MacBook Air, scrolling through email archives from Lily's account. I knew Lily trusted her. She often forwarded bills and apartment paperwork to Grace when her schedule was too busy. Look at this, Grace whispered. She turned the screen toward me. There was an email from 2 weeks ago. A freelance interior design contract Lily had been handling for a townhouse renovation in Brooklyn Heights. She was supposed to be paid in installments, but below it was a sudden cancellation, no explanation, just the words, "Project withdrawn by representative." Representative? I frowned. She doesn't have one. Grace nodded. Exactly, someone canceled her job under her name. My heart pounded. If Lily didn't cancel her contract, who did? Just then, the door opened. Michael stepped inside, designer coat still crisp, holding his phone like he couldn't wait to leave. He kissed my forehead, but his eyes never softened. "How are you feeling, Mom?" "The doctor said you might get discharged in a couple of days." I cut straight to it. "Where is your sister?" Michael's jaw tightened. "She's an adult. Maybe she needed space." His tone was sharp, dismissive. Space from her own mother? She didn't pick up her phone. And someone tried to sign medical papers in my place last night. For a split second, panic flickered across his face, then vanished. "You're imagining things," he said. "Hospitals misinterpret situations all the time." Grace shot up from her chair. "No, we're not imagining anything. I saw the man. He left when I asked questions." Michael glared at her. "Grace, leave the detective work to professionals." Something in his eyes, cold, guarded. He wasn't just annoyed, he was afraid of something. "I want to see Lily," I said firmly. "Call her, right now." He tapped his phone for show, let it ring, then turned the screen so we could see. Voicemail. "See? She's unavailable. She probably went upstate for that design retreat she mentioned." Design retreat? Lily never said a word about that. She never left town without telling me. And she certainly would have told Grace. My chest tightened again. "Michael, please. I need to know she's safe." He put his hand on my shoulder, but the gesture felt rehearsed. "I'll look into it. Just rest." Then he left, quickly, almost fleeing the room. Grace waited until the hallway was silent before whispering, "He's hiding something." I nodded. The truth was forming, piece by painful piece. Lily didn't just disappear. Someone forced her silence. Grace checked Lily's Find My Phone log, but the last location was last night near Central Park, then suddenly offline. Too sudden. Too clean. Like someone shut it off intentionally. My hands shook. "I want to report her missing," I said. Grace squeezed my shoulder. "We will. But first, I think you should see this." She pulled up a new message on her laptop, a reply from a number she had texted earlier, pretending to be Lily. The message read, "If you want answers, meet me tonight. The River Café. No police, come alone." The River Café, on the Brooklyn waterfront, facing the Manhattan skyline. Elegant, quiet, and suddenly terrifying. Grace closed the laptop slowly. "Helen, someone wants to talk, and whoever it is, they know where Lily is." I felt cold all over. This wasn't a disappearance. This was a trap, and we were already stepping into it. By evening, the city had changed. The sky turned a bruised shade of purple over the East River as a black car eased to the curb outside the River Café. Grace helped me out slowly. My lungs were still weak, each breath effortful, but determination pushed me forward more than oxygen. The River Café glowed beneath the Brooklyn Bridge, candles flickering behind glass windows, white tablecloths pressed flat, the Manhattan skyline glittering like a promise no one could trust. A place for expensive anniversaries, not sick mothers searching for missing daughters. We were early. Grace told the hostess we were waiting for someone. They sat us by the window, polite, elegant, silent. The silverware gleamed. I could see my reflection trembling in the back of the spoon. "He said to come alone," Grace whispered. "You think he'll walk in if he sees me?" "You're not going anywhere," I answered. "If this is a trap, I'd rather have you here than be alone." A waiter poured water into tall glasses. I could barely taste anything. The fear had dried my tongue. At 8:04 p.m., a man slid into the seat across from me. He didn't ask permission. He didn't smile. Ryan Blake. Tall, tailored suit, hair slicked like a magazine ad, a coldness behind expensive cologne. He folded his napkin with surgical precision, as if this were just another business deal. "Helen," he said, lowering his voice. "We need to talk about Lily." My heartbeat stuttered. "Where is she?" I demanded. His gaze never wavered. "Safe. But she's overwhelmed. She asked for space." Grace's hand tightened under the table. She didn't speak, didn't blink. I leaned forward. She would never disappear without telling me. Ryan sighed dramatically, like he was the one who was tired of our concern. Lily is an adult. She doesn't owe you daily updates. She's focusing on herself. She even signed temporary power of attorney papers so I could handle her contracts. The lie was slick, polished, like he had practiced it. She didn't sign anything, Grace said sharply. I checked her apartment, her Metro card, her mail, her laptop. She left without packing. People don't vanish midlife. Ryan's jaw flexed. This is getting messy. Lily didn't want drama. Drama. The word burned in my ears. My daughter didn't vanish because she wanted space. Something was wrong. A waiter arrived with a single envelope. Delivered by request, he said. The seal was already broken. Ryan slid it toward me. Review this, he said. It confirms her consent. After that, I expect you to stop interfering. I opened it. A contract, power of attorney, medical decision-making, financial consent, all with Lily's signature. Except something was off. The signature was slanted, rushed, nothing like the careful handwriting she used on birthday cards or holiday gifts. She always drew a tiny loop in the L of her name. Here it was missing. Forgery, I whispered. Ryan leaned back lazily. Of course you'd say that. You're scared of letting her grow up. My lungs tightened. This man wasn't just lying. He was comfortable lying. Confident. Prepared. Grace slid her purse closer. I saw what she was doing. Her phone was recording, hidden under her scarf. Every word, every threat, every lie. The waiter placed the bill on the table. Ryan grabbed it before I could see the total, but when he pulled out his card, the leather holder opened just enough for me to glimpse a business receipt inside. Not his name. A company name. One I had seen days ago. Grace saw it too. Her eyes widened, and she mouthed silently. Same company that canceled Lily's contract. Ryan stood. I'll walk you outside. We're finished here. We are, I said. But not the way you think. The wind whipped across the river as we stepped to the curb. His cologne filled the air, too sweet, too sharp. A notification chimed on Grace's phone. She looked down, her face drained of color. A photo had arrived from an unknown number. Lily, standing in front of a house, her eyes swollen, terrified, and beneath it, a message. Don't let them sign anything for her. She's not safe. My knees buckled. Grace caught me as the city lights blurred. Someone had Lily. Someone connected to him. And now we had proof. I barely slept that night. The image of Lily's swollen eyes haunted me every time I closed mine. By sunrise, the city was already awake, traffic humming across the Brooklyn Bridge, barges crawling along the East River, but my world had narrowed to one goal: find my daughter. Grace drove. The hospital allowed a temporary discharge as long as I carried my portable oxygen support. My lungs still burned with every breath, but fear made me stronger than medicine ever could. The photo from the unknown number was our only clue. A rundown porch, a crooked mailbox, and in the corner, a faded street sign, Crestwood Hill D. Grace typed it into the car's CarPlay system. Results popped up, Westchester County, 2 hours north. We'll find her, Grace whispered, reaching for my hand. The drive felt endless. Bare trees clawed at the winter sky, and the farther we went, the more isolated the houses became. No neighbors walking dogs, no kids riding bikes, no cars in driveways. My chest tightened for reasons that had nothing to do with pneumonia. When we turned down Crestwood Hill Road, I recognized it instantly. The same slanted roof from the picture, the same narrow porch, the same sagging fence. Grace slowed to a crawl. Helen, look. A delivery box sat on the doorstep. Amazon with shipping labels still attached. Packages meant life. Someone lived here recently. I tried to get out of the car, but my legs shook. Grace rushed around, unbuckled my seatbelt, and supported me as I stepped onto the gravel. The cold air stabbed my lungs. The house was silent. Not abandoned, not empty. Just waiting. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Still nothing. Grace moved along the porch, scanning windows. Curtains were drawn tight. A lock on the side gate looked new, shiny metal, recently installed. This place gives me chills, she muttered. We were about to leave when a voice carried from across the yard. You looking for the girl? We turned. A woman in a heavy parka stood by the neighboring fence, holding a small dog against her chest. Her eyes darted toward the house, nervous. Yes, I said, breath trembling. My daughter, Lily Carter. The woman swallowed, lowered her voice. I saw her, a few days ago. She was standing at the door with a suitcase, crying. A man grabbed her arm and pulled her back inside. She didn't look all right. My heart collapsed inside my chest. Did you call the police? Grace asked. The neighbor shook her head quickly. They said it was a private residence and they couldn't get a warrant without cause. But there's more. She motioned toward the driveway. We followed her gaze. A Mercedes SUV, temporary license plates, dark-tinted windows. He comes and goes at night, the woman whispered, always looking over his shoulder. I stopped walking past here. It felt wrong. Every instinct inside me screamed. Before we could respond, the front door creaked. Just a sliver. Just enough for someone inside to see us. Grace pulled me back toward the car. We shouldn't stay here without help. If Lily's being held, if that man comes back. I can't leave her again, I choked out. Grace cupped my shoulders. We're not leaving her. We're getting the police involved. But we need evidence, something solid. Her phone buzzed. Another message, a video clip. Lily, in the same house, sitting on the floor with her hands tied, bruises on her wrists, tears streaking down her face. She tried to speak, but a man's voice cut in. Sign the papers, and this ends. Grace nearly dropped the phone. My knees buckled, and she caught me before I hit the ground. I couldn't breathe. Oxygen machine hissing, lungs collapsing under panic. No more theories, no more denial. Someone was holding my daughter hostage. Grace dialed 911. Her voice shook, but she didn't stutter. We have proof of unlawful imprisonment. Location confirmed. Send units. Now. The dispatcher responded fast. Units en route. Stay in the vehicle. Grace locked the car doors, eyes fixed on the house. For the first time, I let the fear turn into rage. Whoever this man was, whatever he wanted, he made one terrible mistake. He underestimated a mother's will, and I was done being afraid. Patrol cars arrived within minutes, blue lights slicing through the quiet Westchester street. Neighbors peeked through curtains as officers approached the house, weapons holstered, voices steady and professional. Grace handed over her phone, showing the video of Lily tied up, begging for help. The officers tried the door. No response. They circled to the back. Still nothing. One officer radioed in, requesting a forced entry order. But when dispatch ran the property records, something shifted. The house wasn't listed under Ryan Blake. It was leased by a shell company, one with no clear owner, just a series of business filings and legal shields. We can't break in without a warrant signed by a judge, the officer explained. The video helps, but we need verification, timestamp, location match, chain of custody. It was logical, it was correct, and it was torture. I pressed a hand to the window glass. She's in there. Please. We're not giving up, the officer said gently, but we need something more solid. Something more solid. 2 hours later, we were back in Manhattan. My breathing had worsened, so Grace drove me directly to Mount Sinai for a new oxygen assessment. While doctors adjusted my support, Grace stepped outside to make calls. When she came back, she looked different, focused, sharpened. Helen, I found something. On her phone screen was a business document, one of the same companies that canceled Lily's interior design contract, and buried in the fine print, a registered legal office on Park Avenue. If that company is connected to Ryan and it's handling Lily's supposed paperwork, maybe they prepared documents for you too. My stomach dropped. Documents like power of attorney? Grace nodded. By afternoon, she had convinced a legal advocate group to meet us at the address. The building rose like a column of glass above Park Avenue, polished marble floors reflecting gold light from crystal chandeliers. Receptionists spoke in calm, rehearsed voices that made everything sound legitimate, even crimes dressed in paperwork. A paralegal escorted us to a conference room. The door shut softly behind her. The table was spotless, except for one thing, a leather folder. Inside it, forms with my name, medical decision-making, financial authority, asset access, all waiting for a signature. My lungs tightened, not from illness, but fury. These were prepared 2 days ago, the paralegal said casually. Mr. Blake and Mr. Carter requested expedited processing. Mr. Carter? My son. Grace stepped forward. These documents require in-person confirmation and ID from Helen. Did either of them present that? The paralegal shifted. They provided photocopies. Grace's eyes hardened. Photocopies mean nothing without a live signature. For the first time, the woman hesitated. I felt my pulse pounding against the oxygen tubing. I never authorized this, I said, and I want to know how my daughter's legal information landed in your hands. Before she could answer, the door opened again. Ryan walked in, and beside him, Michael, my own son. Michael wouldn't meet my eyes. Ryan pulled out a sleek Mont Blanc pen and set it on the table like a weapon made of ink and steel. "Helen," Ryan said smoothly, "this is what Lily wanted. She signed her part. We just need yours. Stop making this difficult." Grace silently reached into her bag, tapping her phone's record feature. "You're forcing a sick, hospitalized woman to sign away her rights," she said. "That's elder financial abuse and coercion." Michael snapped. "Grace, stay out of this." I stared at my son, the boy I raised, the boy I tucked into bed. He stood there, calm, distant, as if he weren't betraying the woman who gave him life. "I saw the video," I whispered. "Lily's being held." Michael's face went pale. Ryan answered instead. "You think you know what's best for her. You don't. She wants protection from all your emotional chaos." Grace stepped between us. "You touched Lily, you forced her, and we have evidence." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You have nothing admissible, but if Helen signs this, everything becomes clean and legal. No investigations, no trouble." The Mont Blanc pen gleamed under the ceiling lights. I wasn't breathing fear anymore. I was breathing rage. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Not today. Not ever." Ryan looked at Michael, waiting for backup. But suddenly Michael wouldn't move. He stared at me, silent, terrified, like he finally realized the walls were closing in. And somewhere in this building, maybe in another room, someone knew exactly where Lily was kept. Because the deeper we went, the clearer it became. This wasn't paperwork. This was a crime with a letterhead, and I was going to burn every page of it to the ground. The conference room felt smaller somehow, as if the chandeliers pressed down and the Mont Blanc pen on the table had weight beyond ink, an instrument to turn consent into a trap. Ryan sat back, composed. Michael stood near the window, jaw clenched, hands stuffed into his coat pockets. I could see the reflection of his face in the glass, pale and brittle. Grace kept recording. The red dot on her phone was small but honest. It recorded everything. I watched the two men like they were actors in a play I didn't remember auditioning for. "Look," Ryan said smoothly, folding his hands. "We can do this the easy way. Sign. It's legal. It protects everyone. Lily wanted this." "You don't get to decide what she wants for her mother," Grace snapped. Her badge of exhaustion had flipped into steel. "This is coercion, plain and simple." Michael's voice was low, and for the first time I heard a tremor in it. "Mom, I'm trying to protect the family assets." He stopped, as if the words tasted wrong in his mouth. "Protect?" I repeated, incredulous. "By locking my daughter in a house and making forged documents? By trying to sign over my life while I'm in a hospital bed?" Michael's eyes finally met mine. They were not the boy I knew. They were clouded with fear and calculation. For a flash, something like regret flickered, then a harder edge arrived. "You don't understand the deals, Mom. The mortgage, the liabilities. If we don't secure the assets now, the bank could." He trailed off. He sounded rehearsed, like someone who had learned to speak legalese to hide conscience. Ryan leaned forward. "This is the only way to keep things from turning ugly. We can avoid parents fighting in court. We can keep this quiet." "You keep everything quiet for yourself," Grace said. "You've been manipulating Lily's contracts, staging cancellations, and then presenting yourself as savior. It's a pattern." The paralegal shifted in her chair, finally uncomfortable. "If there's evidence of coercion or fraud, we have to notify counsel. We can't proceed." That was the leverage we needed. The paralegal's hesitation stretched the room taut. Michael's hands went limp at his sides. He looked like a man who'd been caught in a storm of his own making. Then something unexpected unraveled. His spine curved, and his voice cracked. "I didn't know it would go this far," he said. I thought I was saving us. I signed papers to move some assets, yes, but I never wanted Lily hurt. I never." His confession landed like a pebble dropping into cold water. Ryan's mask fluttered. For a split second, I saw panic ripple across his face. Quick, clean panic. "You went behind my back with the shell company," Grace said. "You put her contracts in their name and then used that paper trail to justify moving authority. That's fraud." Michael shook his head, tears coming now. "It was supposed to be temporary. We'd restructure the debt. I thought I could protect the house, the retirement. I didn't know Ryan would." He didn't finish. That admission, halting and human, changed the room. The paralegal picked up the phone and dialed. "I'm calling our compliance and the police." Ryan's composure snapped. He slammed his palm on the table hard enough to rattle the Mont Blanc pen. "You idiot," he hissed at Michael. "You just ruined everything." Michael flinched as if struck. Then he turned away and slid down against the glass, head in hands. Shame looked like a man unmade. The door opened. 2 men in suits stepped in. One from the law firm's compliance team, the other an off-duty investigator Grace had contacted earlier. They spoke low, professional. The investigator asked to see the recordings. Grace handed over her phone. The red dot had recorded everything since the River Café. The compliance officer's eyes flicked to the forms on the table, then to the pen, then to Ryan. "We're freezing any transactions linked to these accounts pending investigation," the officer announced. "And given the allegations of coercion and the video evidence you provided earlier, we'll be coordinating with NYPD." Ryan swallowed hard. For the first time, he did not tilt his face into an expression of control. He glanced at Michael, who looked up at him with something like hatred. Not anger at him, but at the man he'd become. "I need to go," Ryan said abruptly. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and left without another word. Michael remained. He met my gaze and for the first time really looked at me. "Mom," he whispered, "I can help. I can tell them where she is." Grace's head snapped up. Where is she?" Michael's voice was small. "He told me it was in a house in Westchester. I thought he was doing this to keep her safe from creditors. I didn't know about the threats." It wasn't a full confession, far from it. But it was a breadcrumb. And in a room full of paper and polished floors, a breadcrumb could guide the nearest hungry thing to the truth. The compliance officer stepped forward. "We'll coordinate with the police right away. But you should be cautious. If Ryan has associates, they might move her." My heart clenched. We were closer, yes, but also more vulnerable. Ryan had smelled the shift and might strike back. Grace gripped my hand. Her knuckles were white, steady. "Then we don't wait for them to move," she said. "We go." I felt my chest tighten around the oxygen tube. Fear pounded, but beneath it was an animal clarity. Rescue would be messy, it could fail, it could make things worse, but the room had narrowed to one simple truth. There was no more time for careful plans, there was only action. The night cracked open with thunder. We left the Park Avenue office in a convoy, one unmarked car from the NYPD, another cruiser, and Grace's sedan behind them. I sat in the passenger seat, oxygen tube clipped to my jacket, my hands trembling around the straps of my bag. Inside it, my Kindle bumped softly with every turn, still on the page that said, "If it's not right, don't do it." I repeated the line in my head like a prayer. Westchester was darker than before. No porch lights, no street lamps, just rain cutting thin white slashes across the windshield. When we turned down Crestwood Hill Road, the police cut their headlights and approached quiet, methodical, professional. The house looked the same. Still, silent. Too silent. One officer whispered instructions. "We verified the video's metadata and location. Judge signed the warrant 30 minutes ago. Stay behind us, Mrs. Carter. You too, Grace." I clutched Grace's sleeve anyway. She squeezed back. The officers moved in formation, front, back, side windows. A flash of light glinted on a car hood. The Mercedes SUV was gone now. That meant someone had been here since morning. A loud knock broke the silence. "Police! Open the door!" No answer. A beat passed. Then a muffled sound, something shifting inside. The officers forced the door, splinters scattering across the porch. Rain poured into the hallway, soaking the carpet instantly. "Clear left! Hallway clear!" Basement door locked. The house smelled like bleach and fear. Grace pulled me in behind them. I shouldn't have gone in. Every breath was a knife. But a mother doesn't stand in the driveway while strangers look for her child. Every instinct dragged me forward. Down the hallway, one door was cracked open. A faint whimper leaked through. The officer pushed it wide. And there she was, Lily. Sitting on the floor, wrists zip-tied in front of her, mascara streaked down her cheeks, hair tangled like a storm had lived inside it. For a second, she didn't recognize me, like trauma had built a wall around her vision. Then her eyes widened. "Mom," my legs gave out. I fell to my knees, and she crawled into my arms, shaking so violently the oxygen tubing slipped from my face. Grace reconnected it for me with shaking fingers. "It's okay," I whispered. "It's over. You're safe. I'm here." Her breath hitched against my shoulder. "He said if I didn't sign, he'd make you sign everything." I tried to fight. He took my phone. He said no one would come. Grace stroked her back. "We came. Paramedics arrived, cutting the ties from her wrists, wrapping her in a silver emergency blanket. Lily flinched when someone touched her shoulder. Trauma echoed in the smallest motion. I pressed my forehead against hers. Outside, sudden shouting. "We have him!" 2 officers walked a man through the rain, hands cuffed behind his back. Ryan. His perfect suit was soaked, hair plastered to his skull, face twisted in rage he could no longer hide. He turned toward us as they moved him to the cruiser. "You'll regret this," he spat. "Both of you." But his threats fell flat against flashing lights and signed warrants. The steel door of the cruiser shut, and for the first time, he looked small. Just another criminal who believed paperwork could hide his cruelty. Michael wasn't there. The police said he was cooperating downtown, giving statements. A part of me hurt for the boy he had been, but justice had to be real, even for sons. Rain tapered into a cold mist as the ambulance loaded Lily inside. She held my hand with a grip that felt years old. Fear and love knotted together. "Don't let go, Mom," she whispered. "I won't. Not again." On the drive back to Manhattan, I watched the skyline rise through the fog, dark shapes against silver clouds, the world slowly sharpening into something new. Lily rested her head on my shoulder. Grace sat across from us, exhausted but awake, like a sentry guarding the last piece of hope. When the ambulance doors closed behind us at Mount Sinai, I finally exhaled. The nightmare wasn't over. There would be courts, lawyers' scars, but my daughter was alive. And as the stretcher rolled down the hallway, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Control. We had survived the storm. Now came the morning. The hospital looked different in daylight, not kinder, just clearer. The emergency cart still rattled through hallways, nurses still hurried from room to room, but today there was no fear holding me hostage. Lily slept beside my bed, curled under a warm blanket the paramedics had given her. Her wrists were now bandaged, her breathing quiet. Every few minutes she'd twitch, trauma still living under her skin, and Grace would gently smooth her hair and whisper, "You're safe." A police detective came by mid-morning to take Lily's statement. She was trembling, but she spoke. Her voice cracked on every sentence, but she didn't hide. She told them how Ryan isolated her, took her phone, forced her into the car, and tried to make her sign a medical proxy saying I was incompetent to make decisions. She never signed it. That was her courage. The detective nodded, recorder running. "He's being charged with unlawful imprisonment, fraud, and coercion. The DA is adding financial exploitation. You won't need to see him again unless you want to testify." Lily squeezed my hand. "I'll testify." When the detective left, my doctor came in with a gentle smile. "Helen, your vitals look stable. If everything remains steady, we'll discharge you this afternoon." This afternoon. The words felt unreal. Just days ago, I was fighting for breath and for answers. Today, I was leaving with my daughter alive. Grace stood and stretched, exhaustion heavy in her eyes, but she never looked more alive. "We'll take you home," she said. "I already packed your bag." But I wasn't done. "Grace," I whispered, "before we leave, there's something I need to do." She nodded. She knew. A few hours later, they wheeled me down to the lobby. A Starbucks kiosk sat near the entrance, and the smell of coffee and warm pastries drifted through the air. Grace bought a latte and placed it in my hands, just like she had on the night I woke up alone. Except I wasn't alone now. A man in a tailored gray suit approached. Not Ryan, not Michael. A lawyer, independent, recommended by the victim's advocacy group. He opened his MacBook Pro, connected to a secure video call, and handed me a pen. Not a Mont Blanc. Not a trap. Just a black hospital pen, cheap, plastic, honest. On the screen, a notary and legal witness waited. "These are the revocations," the lawyer said calmly. "This cancels any existing power of attorney, medical or financial. It also prevents Michael, or anyone connected to Ryan, from accessing your accounts or estate." My signature shook, but it was mine, unequivocally mine. Grace signed as a witness, and the lawyer sealed the documents in a tamper-evident envelope. The flap clicked shut with a finality that felt like breathing fresh air for the first time in weeks. Then came the harder part. Michael entered the lobby. He didn't approach with arrogance or excuses. He came with red eyes, hands shaking, shoulders slumped. He looked less like a man caught and more like a child realizing consequences finally had teeth. "Mom, I'm sorry," he whispered. Grace stepped between us, protective, steady, but I raised a hand. "I'm not here to punish you, Michael. But I'm also not here to save you from the life you chose." Tears slid down his face. "I never meant for Lily to get hurt. I thought Ryan knew what he was doing. I thought I was fixing my financial mess before you found out. By taking my rights? By helping him trap your sister?" He couldn't answer. The lawyer spoke quietly. "There will be charges, Michael, but cooperation and testimony will matter." Michael nodded, hollow and broken. "I'll tell them everything." For a long moment I just looked at him. The boy I raised, the man he became, and the stranger he turned into when fear ruled his choices. Love didn't vanish, but trust did, and trust must be earned. "I hope one day you fix your life," I said softly, "but until then, you're not part of mine." He swallowed, nodded once, and walked out into the afternoon light. Grace wrapped her arm around my shoulders. "You protected Lily, and yourself. Today you chose the right people." The discharge nurse handed me the final paperwork. "You're free to go, Mrs. Carter." Free. As we stepped outside, Lily slipped her hand into mine. Her voice was small but steady. "Can we go home?" "Home, a place without fear." "Yes," I said. "We're going home." And for the first time in days, I felt the sun, warm, bright, ordinary, exactly how life was meant to feel. The next few weeks moved like a slow storm clearing across the sky, loud at first, then quieter, then finally bright. Lily was enrolled in trauma counseling, 3 sessions a week. Some days she talked, some days she just sat in silence while the therapist guided her breathing. The bruises on her wrists faded, but the fear didn't. Not yet. Healing isn't a switch, it's a slow return. I spent most mornings walking short laps around my apartment, rebuilding my lungs. Grace stayed with us almost every day. Grocery runs, doctor checkups, paperwork. Sometimes she'd sit at the kitchen counter after Lily fell asleep, sipping tea, watching the Manhattan skyline through the window like she was guarding the whole city. The DA moved quickly. The evidence was too strong to ignore. Ryan was charged with unlawful imprisonment, coercive control, attempted fraud, elder financial abuse, and tampering with medical decisions. Michael was charged separately for financial conspiracy and attempted exploitation, though his cooperation earned him a recommendation for leniency. The detective told us it would matter. Honesty, even late, still counted. 2 months after the rescue, the preliminary hearing began. Courtrooms are colder than they look on television. The benches are stiff, and the fluorescent lights make every expression sharp, unforgiving. Lily sat beside me, fingers woven into mine. Grace sat to our right like a shield no one could see but everyone could feel. Ryan entered in a navy suit, but jail had changed him. His confidence was gone. He looked smaller, thinner, his eyes darting instead of piercing. When the judge read the charges aloud, he didn't interrupt. He didn't even look up. The prosecution presented the video first, Lily crying, wrists bound, Ryan's voice saying, "Sign the papers, and this ends." The courtroom went silent. Even the court reporter paused, fingers hovering above keys. Then came the recordings Grace had captured at the River Café and the Park Avenue office. The lies, the forged documents, his threats wrapped in polite sentences. Ryan's attorney tried to argue stress, intoxication, misunderstanding, but the facts crushed every excuse. Michael testified next. He didn't wear a suit, just a plain button-down and shaking hands. He admitted everything, helping create the shell company, transferring Lily's contracts, preparing forged documents, and letting Ryan convince him that controlling the finances was for the good of the family. He didn't cry dramatically. There were no excuses, just guilt in every word. When the judge asked if he coerced his sister directly, Michael said softly, "No. But I watched someone else do it, and I didn't stop him. That's just as cruel." Lily's breath hitched beside me. When it was her turn, she stood, small, trembling, but unbroken. She told the court how Ryan isolated her, manipulated her, threatened her. She told them how he whispered that no one would come, that her mother was too weak and her brother too scared. And she told them how she kept fighting anyway. By the time she finished, half the courtroom was silent in a way that wasn't just legal, it was human. The judge took a long breath before speaking. "Mr. Blake, the state has shown overwhelming evidence. You used intimidation, confinement, and fraud for personal gain. Your actions were calculated, not accidental. You will remain in custody until sentencing. The maximum penalties apply." Ryan didn't lift his eyes. The bailiff led him away in cuffs, steel locking against bone. Then the judge turned to Michael. Your cooperation is noted, but your actions facilitated harm. The court orders financial restitution, probation, mandatory counseling, and a lifetime restriction from managing your mother's accounts or assets." Michael nodded, tears falling silently. There was no victory in his face, just the beginning of consequence. When it ended, Lily finally exhaled. "It's over," she whispered. I wrapped my arms around her, and Grace pulled us both into a trembling hug. We stood there in the hallway, 3 women stitched back together, not perfectly but honestly. As we stepped outside, the sky over Lower Manhattan was bright, almost too bright. People walked past us, ordinary and unaware. But for the first time in a long time, ordinary felt beautiful. Justice had spoken, and it spoke in our favor. 3 months slipped past quietly, like snow melting off a roof. The city changed colors with the season. Trees along the Hudson turned from winter gray to gentle spring green. Joggers filled the riverside paths again. Dogs pulled leashes. Life moved, whether you were ready or not. And somehow, we kept pace. Lily started freelancing again from home. Small interior design projects at first. A nursery in Queens, a cafe in Brooklyn Heights. She kept her phone close, not out of fear, but because freedom still felt fragile. Some mornings she would wake up gasping, shaking, remembering the house in Westchester. On those days, she'd sit by the window with chamomile tea while the therapist coached her breathing over video call. Healing didn't follow a straight line. But every week, she walked a little farther, laughed a little louder. Grace officially moved into the spare bedroom, just for a while. But no one believed it was temporary. She became part of our days. Grocery shopping, cooking, late-night conversations about nothing and everything. She was family without needing permission or blood. And me? I learned how to breathe again, not just with my lungs, but with my mind. I joined a small meditation group for seniors over Zoom. Most mornings, before coffee, I sat in the living room with my Kindle, rereading my favorite passage from Meditations. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but your estimate of it. For once, those words felt true. The apartment no longer carried the scent of hospital antiseptic or fear. It smelled like pancakes and lemon detergent. We bought soft white curtains and swapped the harsh overhead bulbs with warm lamps. Just living felt like recovery. One afternoon, an Amazon package arrived at our door. Inside was a photo frame engraved with, "We survived because love stayed." Lily didn't know who sent it, until Grace raised a hand with a shy smile. We placed it on the bookshelf next to a stack of therapy journals and a potted fern Lily rescued from a clearance aisle. That night, we celebrated with takeout from a small diner and a single candle stuck in a cupcake. Not because it was anyone's birthday, just because it was a good day, and good days deserved markers. Later, the doorbell rang. Michael stood in the hallway, thinner than before, eyes rimmed with shame and hope. Probation paperwork in his backpack, court-ordered counseling brochures in his hand. He didn't step inside, not yet. "I came to return Mom's house keys," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have had them in the first place." I took the keys, cold metal in my palm. "I'm getting help," he continued. "Real help. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I'm trying to become someone Lily can trust again, someone you can be proud of." Pain flickered in his voice, but so did sincerity. Healing takes time. For all of us. We didn't hug. It wasn't time for that. But as he walked toward the elevator, he turned back. "Thank you for not giving up on her," he whispered. The elevator doors closed, and for the first time, I didn't feel anger, just release. Later, I stood on the balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The Manhattan skyline glittered like scattered diamonds. Lily joined me, resting her head on my arm. "Do you think we'll ever be normal again?" she asked. "No," I said softly. "Not the old normal, but something better." Grace slid the balcony door open, holding 3 mugs of hot chocolate. "Family meeting," she said, smiling. "First rule, nobody faces the world alone." We clinked mugs like a toast, not to endings, but to beginnings we didn't see coming. In that moment, peace didn't feel fragile anymore. It felt earned. And as the river moved silently beneath us, reflecting the city lights, I realized something simple and enormous. I didn't just survive. I reclaimed my life. And I chose the people who stayed. Some mornings I still wake before the sun. Old habits don't disappear easily. But now, when I open my eyes, the first thing I see is light. Not hospital monitors, not fear, just light slipping through the curtains and painting soft golden stripes across the living room floor. Lily is usually in the kitchen, barefoot, humming while she waits for her oatmeal to warm. Grace reads emails on the couch with her hair still messy from sleep, and every time I walk in, they stop, smile, and make room for me at the table. It's a simple routine, nothing heroic. But peace is rarely loud. We keep a small plant on the windowsill. Lily bought it the week she came home. She said, "If it grows, so will we." At first the leaves drooped, fragile as her voice. Now they stretch toward the sunlight with quiet confidence. Some days I feel like we're doing the same. Life is not perfect. Healing is slow. Nightmares still visit, and scars still ache. But in the gentle rhythm of ordinary days, making tea, folding blankets, sharing silence, we are becoming whole again. One evening on the balcony, Lily rested her head on my shoulder and whispered, "Mom, do you think everything happens for a reason?" I took her hand. "No," I said, "but we can give every pain a purpose." She smiled, the skyline reflecting in her eyes, bright, unbroken, alive. And for the first time in a very long time, the world felt safe enough to breathe.